My dad collapsed and had to be rushed to the hospital. I need to be with him, so I can't go on our honeymoon. You'll have to go alone. Suddenly, the honeymoon I had been so excited about was cancelled. My husband insisted I should go by myself, but who would go on a honeymoon alone? Then, something strange happened. Someone appeared in front of me, and I felt my legs go weak. It was my father-in-law, who I thought was supposed to be in the hospital. "Father-in-law, why are you here?" I asked in shock. "My name is Sarah. I've been living with Mark for 5 years, and this summer, he finally proposed." Looking back, those 5 years felt long. After dating for about a year, we started visiting Mark's parents, and he also met my parents. But Mark kept saying we would get married once his job was more stable, without giving me a clear answer. Eventually, he jokingly suggested that maybe we should just stay as we are. This worried me. I told Mark, "I'm getting close to 30. If you're not ready to make a decision, maybe we should break up." After that, Mark finally proposed. By then, we were already close to each other's families, and we had discussed everything about the wedding and our honeymoon. We were just ready to go. We planned a small ceremony with just close family and friends. The last thing left was the honeymoon. Mark was going to spend the day with his parents, and I had dinner with mine, who had come from out of town. Then, I came home alone. I checked our luggage for the honeymoon and sent Mark a message before bed. "Mark, you did great today. I'm all set for the honeymoon tomorrow, and I'm really excited for our trip to Italy." But Mark didn't reply. I thought he must have fallen asleep after the busy day. I hoped he wouldn't oversleep for our flight the next morning. I eventually fell asleep, feeling a little nervous. The next morning, I was woken up by a call from Mark. He sounded frantic. "Sarah, something terrible has happened." He explained quickly. "My dad collapsed and was rushed to the hospital. You'll have to go on the honeymoon alone today." I was confused and shocked. "What do you mean?" "He was fine at the wedding yesterday." "I'm just as shocked as you," Mark said. "I'm staying with him, but you go ahead without me." "That's ridiculous," I said. "If your father is sick, there's no way I can leave for our honeymoon." "Who goes on a honeymoon alone?" I asked which hospital his dad was in, but Mark wouldn't tell me. "If I told you, you'd come visit him," Mark explained. "Dad knows how much you've been looking forward to Italy. He insisted that you should still go." "Please respect his wishes," Mark said. "There's no way I can enjoy myself with everything that's going on." "Are you planning to come join me once he's feeling better?" "Of course, I'll come as soon as things are settled here." "Settled? Don't jinx it by saying that," he replied. "Please, let me handle things here and you go to Italy as planned. I'm about to arrive at the hospital, so I won't be able to answer your calls. I'll talk to you later." Before I could say anything, he hung up quickly. I tried to call him back right away, but his phone seemed to be turned off. With no way to contact him and not knowing which hospital he was at, I couldn't go to my father-in-law's side. Just then, the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, I felt weak in my legs. It was my father-in-law, who was supposed to be in the hospital. "Your legs? Are you okay?" I asked, shocked. "Why are you asking me that?" he replied, looking confused. "I had a bit too much to drink at the wedding yesterday, but I felt fine this morning. I was sober, and I could drive, so I came to pick you up after dropping off Mark." I was confused. My father-in-law, who was supposed to be in the hospital, and Mark, who was supposed to be with him, were acting strange. Then, my father-in-law said something odd. "You're going on your honeymoon, right?" "I dropped Mark off at the station but then thought I should come pick you up. Let me take you to LaGuardia." That's when I realized something didn't add up. If we were going to Italy, we should be going to JFK, not LaGuardia. "You just said you'd take me to LaGuardia." "But our honeymoon is in Italy," I said. "Yes, that's what I thought too. But Mark told me this morning that we changed the plan. We're going to Alaska instead." "Alaska?" I asked, even more confused. My father-in-law nodded. "Yeah, he left a note in the car." He showed me a post-it note from Mark that had the name of an inn in Alaska and a flight from LaGuardia to Anchorage Airport written on it. Suddenly, everything clicked into place. Can you please take me to LaGuardia after all? I asked. There shouldn't be much traffic, and we should get there around the same time Mark's train arrives. Of course, he said. During the drive, I couldn't stop thinking about Mark's strange actions. I would find out if my guess was right once I saw him at the airport. I thanked my father-in-law and headed inside the airport. Near the check-in counter, I saw Mark right away. He was with a young woman, picking drinks together. I knew it. He had been cheating on me all along. The affair probably started while we were living together, and his hesitation to marry me was probably because of her. Now, he was going on a trip with his mistress instead of our honeymoon. I stood in front of him, determined to confront him. Mark, who was about to leave the store with drinks, saw me and his mouth dropped open. "Sarah, what are you doing here?" he asked. "Right back at you. Why are you, who should have been at the hospital with your father, here?" I replied. "Oh, I just came to do some shopping." "Shopping? You came all the way to LaGuardia just to buy a bottle of water?" I asked, confused. "Yeah, Dad was begging for airport water," he said. "That's funny," I said. "Because I was just with your father." Mark seemed surprised. "Huh? My father came to pick you up in his car?" He seemed fine, which was a big surprise. Yeah, after our call, he suddenly felt better. "His energy always amazes me," Mark said, trying to stick to his story. I couldn't believe it. Then, a thought crossed my mind. I wanted to see what excuse he'd come up with next. "So, who is this woman?" I asked. "Where were you two planning to go?" "Well, she's the nurse in charge of Dad. We're going to check out a rehabilitation facility in Alaska," Mark said. His excuse was so unbelievable, I couldn't help but sigh in frustration. "Enough. Your lies are giving me a headache," I said. Mark quickly said, "It's not a lie. She really is my dad's nurse." Before I could respond, I heard a voice from behind me. I turned around and saw my father-in-law standing there. "Father-in-law? I thought you went home," I said, surprised. "I noticed something was off with you, Sarah, so I parked the car and followed you." "Looks like I was right," he said. Mark realized his lies weren't working, and he started acting suspiciously. My father-in-law turned to him and asked in a stern voice, "So, who is this woman?" Before Mark could answer, the woman beside him spoke up. "I'm Amy, Mark's girlfriend." Mark quickly tried to cover her mouth. "Hey, what are you saying?" Amy pushed his hand away. "You promised to leave your wife and be with me. Isn't that why you chose me over her today?" Mark tried to quiet her. "Just be quiet." Amy didn't stop. "You promised to leave your wife, but you only came today because you threatened him. You said if he didn't go to Alaska with you, you'd expose your relationship." I understood now. "So you were having an affair with her," I said coldly. Amy glared at me and snapped, "It's not an affair. Mark and I are serious. He never wanted to marry you." By this point, I didn't even feel like arguing. "Fine, do as you please," I said. I turned and left with my father-in-law, leaving Mark and Amy behind. 5 days later, Mark returned home, the doorbell rang, and I talked to him through the intercom. "Sarah, I can't unlock the door. Can you open it for me?" he asked. Mark knocked on the door. "Oh, about the lock. I changed it." "You changed it? Why would you do that without telling me?" he asked. "I don't like the idea of a stranger having a spare key to my home." "A stranger? Are you talking about me?" he said, surprised. "I've already prepared the divorce papers, so just sign them quickly," I replied. "Wait, let me in first, and we can talk after that." I kept the door chain on and handed him the divorce papers through the crack in the door. "There's nothing to talk about. Once you sign these, you can leave immediately." "Don't be so angry," he said. "I've decided to break up with Amy." "What do you mean?" I asked, not understanding. "She's terrible. I went to Alaska because she threatened to expose our relationship. She complained about everything, how old-fashioned the inn was, how bad the weather was. It wasn't fun at all. I told her I don't want to divorce you. I told her I'm done. I was so frustrated. I don't care if you and that girl break up. The only option for me is divorce, even if you don't agree." Mark seemed confused. "Are you angry because we didn't go to Italy?" "Well, it's a little late, but how about we go now?" I couldn't believe it. "Are you out of your mind? How could you even suggest that after everything? I said. There's no way a man who cancels his honeymoon and goes on a trip with his mistress is thinking clearly. I handed him another document through the crack. Sign this one too. What's this? Mark asked. It's a written agreement for alimony and the cancellation fee for our honeymoon, I explained. I had prepared this through a lawyer while he was away. Mark was shocked. I don't want a divorce. Why do I have to pay alimony? You're the one who cheated. Infidelity has consequences, including alimony. The choice to stay together or not isn't yours to make, I said firmly. What's this cancellation fee? Mark asked. We didn't get a refund for our trip because we cancelled on the day of the flight. Since it was you who caused the cancellation, you'll have to pay for it, I explained. Mark protested. I told you to go alone. Not going was your choice. How could I possibly go on a honeymoon alone? I said. You lied about your father being critically ill just to cover up your affair. There's no way I could have gone. I really wanted to go to Italy with you too, but Amy threatened me. I had no choice. You wouldn't want your husband to lose his job, would you? Mark said, trying to defend himself. She threatened to expose you at work? I asked. Yes, if she says she's going to do something, she will. It's all Amy's fault, Mark said. I knew Amy was unpredictable and could make a scene. She even told me she was Mark's girlfriend directly, but with someone like her, I knew Mark would self-destruct on his own. I needed to get Mark to sign the divorce papers. I pretended to worry and asked him, Are you sure it's okay for you to be here? You broke up with Amy, right? Wasn't she angry? Of course, she was angry, but I'm done with her, Mark said. Well, you might be fine, but what about Amy? I asked. With her personality, I wouldn't be surprised if she storms into your office and exposes you. Mark seemed worried. That would be disastrous. I need to go to the office and stop her. Please give me your company key card, I said. I pulled Mark's company key card from his drawer and showed it to him. This is the one. I'll give it to you in exchange for your signature on the divorce papers and the payment agreement. Mark was reluctant, but I knew he would probably agree and sign. Mark hesitated. Have you decided? You better hurry, or Amy might beat you to the office. All right, fine, Mark said reluctantly. He signed the divorce papers and passed them through the door crack. Here, this is good enough. Now hurry up and give me the key card. I handed him the key card, and Mark quickly ran off to the office. I went to the courthouse to submit the divorce papers and the signed payment agreement to my lawyer. It was a relief that the money issues were finally settled. The next day, I received a frantic call from Mark. Hello? I answered. Sarah, what do you want? We're legally strangers now. There's nothing to talk about. I was curious about what had happened, so I decided to hear him out. What do you want? I was called into the office today, Mark said, sounding desperate. Everyone knows I had an affair, even though I got ahead of Amy. Isn't that weird? I couldn't help but laugh. Oh, that's because I told them. What? He said, confused. I felt bad for the people who came to our wedding, only for us to divorce so soon. You seemed so busy with Amy, so I explained to our wedding guests why we got divorced. I explained. You told the board too? Mark asked, shocked. Yes, I did. When I told them that my husband preferred a chiatcation over our honeymoon, everyone was appalled. I said, so now you don't have to hide your true self at work anymore. Isn't that a good thing? Mark was furious. Don't mess with me. You ruined my life. I replied calmly. I should be saying that to you. I wish I could get back the 5 years I wasted with you. When I raised my voice, Mark had no response. Why don't you just be with Amy if she's so serious about you? I asked. Wouldn't she support you if you quit your job? No way, Mark said. Nothing good happens when I'm with her. The only person who can support me is you, Sarah. I shook my head. Well, nothing good happens when I'm with you either. If you want support, you should think about other people's feelings before you act. Mark tried to plead again. I truly regret it. Let's try again. I shook my head. No chance. How about you reflect on things, start over, and maybe get back into the dating scene? And maybe find a job first. Sarah, don't abandon me, Mark begged. I said firmly, you're the one who betrayed me first. You'll just have to live with your regret. Then, I ended the call. It seems Mark went back to his parents' house a few times to borrow money, but my father-in-law, who had been unknowingly used as an excuse for Mark's affair, was furious. Eventually, he cut ties with Mark. Mark found it uncomfortable to stay at his company and ended up quitting his job. Job hunting didn't go well for him. And he ended up working part-time at a convenience store just to get by. Meanwhile, I moved into a new home using the alimony I received from Mark. Even though I had changed the locks, it felt uncomfortable living in a place Mark knew. Mark's parents helped me move. They probably saw it as a way to make up for their son's actions. I still occasionally chat and have meals with them. I can't get back the 5 years I spent with Mark, but I'm focused on finding a better man next time.